This show is brought to you by the This Old Nerd store, powered by Amazon.com. Visit store.thisoldnerd.com. Find everything we've talked about and so much more at the store. Plus, since it's powered by Amazon, it's safe and secure. Buy from the This Old Nerd store, you get tech, we get a commission. It's win-win. Welcome back to This Old Nerd. This is This Old Nerd Season 2. I am Ayaz Akhtar. This is this guy, and Camera Mom is back behind the camera. Hello, everybody. I know you guys have been wondering, hey, what took you so dang long to have an episode again? What's taking you so long? Well, look, this might look familiar, but this stuff, I guarantee you, made a cross-country trip from New York to California because we moved to California so I could take a job at the good old Twit Cottage, and we're moving to our studios relatively soon. I am psyched about this gig. Anyhow, let's talk about some administrative stuff off the bat. Season 2. That's right, we're going to move to seasons. We're going to have 10 uninterrupted weeks of This Old Nerd, and then we're going to take a break because we need to recharge. And let's face it, I still got to unpack. This is really taking a lot of time. Anyway, we're going to ease into Season 2 with a really simple episode. We're going to update something we talked about in Season 1. Season 1, I threw out my cell phone. I said, forget it. No more cell phones for me. The plans are ridiculous. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a MiFi and an iPod Touch, and that's going to be my phone. Now, I've been living with that setup for months, okay? So I'm going to tell you guys how it worked out, what's changed, and let's get to it. So let's recap how exactly we did the setup when we first did this. We ditched the cell phone. We picked up a $150 Virgin Mobile MiFi. It cost us $150, but there was no contract involved. Back then, $40 a month got you unlimited 3G data, and the 3G data with this device turns into Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi then ran to this. This is an iPod Touch, 4th generation. Back then, we were using an iPhone 3G, waiting for this to come out. The iPod Touch actually now has a mic and speaker built in for FaceTime, so we can do speakerphone style calls. Back then, we had quite the setup with software to make this all work like a phone. First, we had the Skype application so we could receive and make calls. Then we also had Boxcar, which gave us our text messages, and all of that was tied together thanks to Google Voice. Yeah, thanks to Google Voice. Now, Google Voice is a free service from Google where you get one phone number. And it sends your calls and texts to wherever you want. So in this case, it sent our calls to Skype, and it sent our voicemails. It sent notifications of our voicemails and notifications of our text messages to Boxcar. Back then, there was no Google Voice application, so we had to use that system. And a lot of things have changed since then. First off, Virgin Mobile has changed their plans, okay? There's no more $40 a month unlimited. Now it's $50 a month, and you get 2.5 gigabytes of 3G speed. After that, you get throttled. So that's kind of really uncool because, look, we got the thing because we hated the ridiculous data plans. We didn't want the caps, but that's gone now. All right, so that's the deal with that. On top of this situation, there is finally an official Google Voice application in the Apple App Store, which means we don't need to use Boxcar if we don't want to. So that helps out a little bit, streamlines our process, and also with things that have changed, this guy kind of talks a little bit more. Okay, so I've been living with this whole non-cell phone, Wi-Fi, MiFi, 3G nonsense setup for over 6 months now, I think. So it's been a very long time. So I am sort of an expert now on living with this kind of setup. Is this the greatest thing ever? Have we figured out a way around the system? No, not at all. Not even close. Here's exactly, kid off screen. The problem is that Skype is really, really unforgiving, okay? So if you have a situation where your network speed kind of lowers somewhere, tell you what, your voice call, this kind of falls apart. It just turns into a real mess. You sound like a robot, and the call drops, and the person on the other line is like, what's going on? Aren't you on a cell phone? And then you have to explain your wacky setup, and that doesn't work so well. But we did find something interesting. If we used FaceTime, now at the time, FaceTime only worked on Wi-Fi. So the MiFi plus the iPod Touch actually worked for FaceTime. So I could talk to my kid and go, hey, look, how's it going? The weird thing is, even though video might have failed every now and then, the audio kept going. So actually, FaceTime was more forgiving than Skype. Added to that whole mess, a whole new application showed up called Talkatone. This actually took advantage of Gmail's voice chat system. So you could actually tap into Google to make free phone calls. This was only in the United States, and Google has not explained exactly what the fate of this whole calling thing is. But that works, not so great, not so bad. So what I'm saying to you is voice calling in particular, was not exactly great. However, if you're like me and you really hate making voice calls, guess what? This doesn't bother you at all. Fine, voice calling's not so great, but then again, what are you using your phone for? I am an internet guy. I like checking the news. I want to see what's going on Twitter. I want to read my email. Tell you what, the system works fine for that. You want to get text messages? Also works fine. One of the downsides about Google Voice is that it currently does not do MMSs. So if people are sending you pictures and things, you're not necessarily going to get them. So that's not cool. But then again, if all you need to do is communicate via text and you want to check your internet stuff like Twitter and Facebook and that kind of thing, this actually works pretty well. Like, I didn't miss having an iPhone because I had all the same applications on the iPod Touch, and I even had access to things that were Wi-Fi only. I didn't even need to jailbreak my phone or my iPod because it worked fine. If you're willing to make voice calls only at home or only at work, somewhere where you have a really good Wi-Fi network, tell you what, you can make voice calls and it'll work just fine. But the thing is, you have to understand that it's kind of a give and take, kind of a bit of sacrifice. You're not going to necessarily have great calling on the go, but you will be able to do it when you're stationary, and that's really up to you. If your lifestyle lets you do that, like mine does, I can actually have a call at home or at work. That works fine for me. But for a lot of people, this might not be optimal. Oh yeah, one more thing about this whole dual device setup. If you have a MiFi and an iPod Touch, the thing is, you got to keep two things charged all the time, okay? Now, the MiFi does have a user replaceable battery, so that's a plus, but the thing is the MiFi's battery can run out, I think, in around 2-3 hours if you're doing some heavy duty processing. I'm not talking about calls. I'm talking about Pandora, or you're getting push mail, or something like that. The MiFi will probably die before the iPod Touch does, at least in our tests, or my whole life. So I suggest to you, if you want to go out for the whole day, and you want to be connected all day, the fact that you don't have a user replaceable battery in the iPod Touch is kind of irritating. You're going to need to have a USB battery, something that gets charged by a USB or has USB ports, so you can actually have your battery attached to your belt, and then your MiFi, and then your iPod, and then you look like Batman, or you look like some kind of deranged lunatic, one of the two. Or you can just carry it in a bag. So this is a somewhat inconvenient setup, but then again, you aren't paying the same kinds of bills, you don't have the contracts. Again, this is a major concession you have to make to live like this. Now it is time to talk about the partner acceptance rating, or as we call it, the PAR thunk. Now, the whole PAR situation is how well your partner accepts what you're doing. Your partner could be your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your husband, your wife, your kids, your parents, I don't care who it is. These are the people who really have to deal with you, okay? And if they hate what you're doing, they're not gonna let you keep doing it, okay? Let's be serious. So, in my case, how did it work for me? Well, we did this for months, right? Nothing really changed. The fact is, I never really answered my phone in the first place, and I still don't answer my phone now. I was a text person then, I'm a text person now. So as far as my wife's concerned, nothing's really changed. All we did is we changed my phone number over to my Google Voice number, and nothing has really seemed that different. Again, this really depends on your partner. If your partner is an angry young baby, you might not understand why you've done this change. Because if the stuff doesn't work as well as it used to, you'll hear crying. Okay, tell you what, I think that's going to wrap up this episode of This Old Nerd. Now, again, that might have seemed like a really simple episode. We're just going to ease our way into this season. The crazy stuff is coming, wiring the house with Ethernet, getting an over-the-air antenna. Hey, look, there happens to be a box right here. And remember to ask yourself this question. How's your tech life? Because, you know, it could always be better. I'm Ayaz Akhtar, and we'll see everybody next week. I promise.
You did this instead of unpacking?
You want to stand right here and do that, kid? Yeah.